Hi all, thank you for joining us for our second edition of Trade Plates Live. We're doing a special broadcast today because we're all very excited that we've got the brand new car dealer magazine. This will be reaching you very soon. We'll be back next Tuesday at our normal time of 3 o'clock, so make sure you're back then. Joining me on the sofa today, I've got a face you'll remember, which is Andy Whistle, who joined us last week, our regular, you might say. And next to him, we've got Sophie Williamson-Stothart. She's our features editor here at Car Dealer. And James Baggett doesn't really need an introduction. He has made himself quite well known, you might say.
Infamous.
Yeah, infamous.
Great introduction.
Yeah. So to start with, as we're looking at what's been going on this month, I want to ask you guys first, what are you most looking forward to? So I'll start with Sophie. What's your exciting thing for the month?
I think it has to be CDX really, and the fact that the Women in the Motor Industry session, from my perspective anyway, is really taken off again this year, and we've already got double the number of people signed up for this session and some great speakers on the panel this year, so racing drivers, stunt drivers and some really key government figures coming in, so it's going to be really something to look forward to.
67 days left to go as well.
Yeah, so there's still more coming in.
Exciting.
So get signing up if you haven't already.
Have you set any of the topics for that yet? Do you know what we're going to be talking about, or is it whatever people want to?
Generally, it tends to be what happens in the moment. So you never know what questions people are going to be asking as guests. So everyone's got their own idea of what they want to get from the event. So we just wait and see what happens.
Exciting.
Yeah.
What about you, James?
I'm looking forward to it. We've got some really cool stuff coming up for the magazine. We've organised some big features. We're on issue 97 at the moment, so we've got a 100th issue coming up in the not too distant future, and we're planning some really cool stuff for that. We're going to be selling 100 cars in 100 minutes with the help of BCA and the car dealer team. I'm sure I've told you all about this. It's going to be it's going to be selling 100 cars in 100 minutes, which is going to be a lot of fun. I'm doing another trading up feature, which Andy's going to love. Because I'm going to be taking on his challenge of trading up from £100 to as much as I possibly can for Great Ormond Street Hospital. Already Nigel McMinn from Lookers has already donated us a car. We're going to be starting in Belfast and then driving around the country. Hopefully lots of dealers are going to be able to help me buy and sell those cars and trade up to as much as possible. But we've got some really cool road tests coming up. One of the things we've done is a survey with dealers of the top 100 cars to sell of all time. We're going to be bringing the top 20 together at Rockingham. I've managed to book them all in now, which is a big thing off my to-do list. I'm really looking forward to getting those cars there and revealing what the favourite car for dealers to sell is of all time. So yeah, I've got lots to look forward to.
For you, the only person that was there at the start really, how exciting is it for you that you've actually got to 100 issues?
I can't quite believe that we've got to 100 issues. When I published the first one in my conservatory, if someone had said to me that I'd be sat here with you guys looking forward to our 100th issue, I would never have believed them. So I'm incredibly proud of what we've achieved as a team, and we're going to have a bit of a party, I think.
Sounds good. Andy, what are you excited about?
Obviously, 100th issue, CDX, which I'll come on to in a second, but we've got a couple of other things. We've got Workshop magazine, which is now standalone, and there's a lot of work gone into that, and that's a big thing for us, and it's easy to forget that. So I'm looking forward to the next issue of that, which is going to hit the streets in about 10 days' time. And Car Dealer Power is coming up as well, and we haven't really spoken about that. And that's a big event for us as well. So we've got the Spinnaker, literally just come off the phone to the Spinnaker. So the event's going to be happening at the end of July in the Spinnaker again. And if we get weather like today, it'll be fantastic. And it's just making sure that people are aware that they should be voting for the right suppliers, and for the suppliers to make sure that they're out talking to their dealers, because that's really big stuff.
Is the dealers too can vote for their best manufacturers? I mean, that's
absolutely.
A big part of that survey is saying what the best manufacturers are to represent, and I know the manufacturers push it just as hard as the suppliers do. And it's a really nice thing for us to have that survey, because it gives fantastic feedback from the dealers on who the best manufacturers are to represent, and it does pretty much change every year.
Absolutely.
There are the same kind of manufacturers that are near the top end, but I don't think the same manufacturers won it twice in the years we've been running it. So it's quite. Not yet. This could be the year
but
that happens.
It's because CDX is so big now. It's easy to forget about this, and actually it is just as important. It's happening after CDX, so all of a sudden, as soon as CDX is out of the way, all of our effort goes into it. But we're already out there and launching it, and we're already talking to suppliers. So I'm excited about that. But CDX definitely. it's just moving all the time, and we're introducing new things and we're reacting to what's going on. So Brexit is a really good example. We've now got the debate on Brexit, which I think we're going to talk about at some point anyway. We've got some great speakers coming up, and we've already got just under 1,000 delegates signed up already, which is fantastic news.
I'm particularly pleased to say that we've got Autocar Awards are going to be held on the same day as CDX. I've been talking to the team at Haymarket for quite some time, and it's a fantastic coup for us to have Autocar, an amazing consumer brand, working alongside us at that event. I've seen the guest list, and it is amazing. They've got some fantastic people coming. So the dealers, I'm sure the dealers are going to be invited by the manufacturers, but it's added another element to CDX, and I think that's what we've been saying. It's all about adding lots of things to that day that makes it the must attend event of the year.
Yeah, I think from a dealer, it doesn't matter whether you are head of a franchise or whether you've got 20 cars and a small lot and it's all your own. Everyone will take something from the day. You know, we've got 12 great workshops now. We've got just under 100 exhibitors, and we're really determined to turn this into the UK NADA. You know, it's all about go there, educate, inform, take something back to your business. It's not going to cost you a penny.
So we're getting a big casino as well.
No, I don't think it's going to be a Blackpool just yet.
maybe next year. But you know, we just want to encourage as many people to come through the door as possible. You know, because kind of saying if you don't, your competition will.
That's not forgetting the big social media giants as well. I think we've got Facebook, Twitter, Google, and we've got our top 140 Twitter as well to be announced.
Yeah, I mean, I'm particularly looking forward to hearing from Facebook. I mean, they've been a name that we've been trying to get to CDX for some time. Fortunately, someone in the office had a contact there, and we used that to get hold of the right person. And when I spoke to them on the phone, they loved it. They loved the idea of CDX. Twitter were brilliant last year, and so to be able to bring those two social networks together, to tell dealers about what they can offer when it comes to advertising cars and using it to better their business, was really good.
Twitter seems to be something that dealers have sussed. They know how to build their audience there, but Facebook's still a bit of an unknown, so it should be interesting. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you look at our forums, some dealers are having fantastic success selling cars on Facebook, and they're cutting their advertising costs hugely. So I'll be interested to hear, particularly myself, you know, what Facebook could say. I mean, are they aware of that? Have they got hints and tips of how dealers can use their platform to sell more cars?
I mean, what's really interesting this year is you look at the number of exhibitors who have signed up, and we're publishing, and in fact in this month's magazine we've got a list of all the exhibitors. There's an awful lot of people out there who want to talk to dealers about selling their stock. You know, people are talking about trying to take on the established people, and you've got the names. You know, you've got your Auto Traders and your Motors of the world, and RAC and AA that everyone knows about. But all of a sudden we've got a raft of new names, and some of these guys have come from the States, and some of them have just sprung up. And unlike previous years, where we get phone calls every month from new companies who want to take on the establishment, and just haven't got the right approach or the right team or the deep enough pockets. But all of a sudden there's a raft of 4 or 5 people who are taking it seriously. They're at the event, they've got big stands, they've got fairly big pockets, which, let's be honest, you need. You know, the likes of Autovolo, Car Wow,
Car Snip,
all of these guys, and they're
Car
taking
Gurus are another
Car
one.
Gurus.
It's a huge number of names coming
the
up.
dealers are calling out for it though, so I don't know if they've just engaged with that and realised the dealers are looking for another option and they need to jump in there now.
It's a huge marketplace, you know, and it's not much more at the moment than a duopoly, I think. And I'm hearing that there's other names that we'd recognise who are starting to think about putting a bit of money back. And I think it's good news for the dealers because people want a bit of competition.
Are there any of these new brands that have surprised you that you thought, oh, maybe this won't go so well, but actually people are really engaging with them?
I think it's early days. What surprised me is how seriously they're taking CDX and the money they're throwing at it. You know, we've got a couple of them are taking very, very big stands. So when you look at the floor plan and you look at the amount of space they're taking, they're clearly going to be doing something special. Now, you don't do that if you're taking it seriously. If you turn up and take a small stand, that's fine. But if you're taking a mezzanine level, then you're serious about this. So what surprised me so far is how serious a few of these names are and how seriously they seem to be taking it as far as budgets. Because let's be honest, no matter what you say, you've got to get out there. You've got to put a lot of money into marketing because it's all very well getting the dealers on side, but if you haven't got the consumers on side that come to your site, it isn't going to work. And you know you need a lot of money for that. So that surprised me. We'll see. You know, in a year's time, will we be sitting here talking about 3 or 4 players who've really taken the game to the establishment? I don't know, but I think out of the 4 or 5 that are there, I think a couple of them have got a good chance of making a fist of it.
The good thing is that CDX, the dealers can just walk around each of these different stands and say, right, what can you do for me? How are you different? It's very hard to do that picking up on the phone. It's going to take you a week to talk to all these different people. At CDX, they're going to be able to, they're all there, they're all in sales mode, they all are going to tell these dealers exactly what they can offer that's different.
And no matter what, it's got to be good for the dealers, because if nothing else, it'll make the establishment look and think, okay, we've got to do something here. We've got to make sure we keep one step ahead and we keep doing the right things and come up with new ideas. So whether or not you retain your account with your current supplier or you try someone new, I think it's great for the industry. I think it really is.
Yeah, agreed.
This has become a little bit of a CDX love-in, so
yes.
shall we move on to... we talked earlier a little bit about Brexit. Do you want to do your little plug about Brexit at CDX?
Well, funny enough, there's this
Get
thing
over and done
happening.
with it, yeah.
There's something happening on the 24th of May called CDX, in case we hadn't mentioned it. Did we talk about that yet?
I don't think we have.
And one we've recognised. If you talk to anyone, I've talked to a lot of people, and you say, look, where are you going? What are you voting? Majority of people are saying, I'm not well enough informed. I don't know.
Yeah.
We're going to get an awful lot go on between now and June, and we felt that it was important to try and support the industry. So we initially started as a workshop in one of the workshop rooms. We've had great feedback. We're going to move it to the live stage, and we've got a number of guests from within the industry, and we're also hoping to get a couple of the campaigns to take part and actually talk about what they believe the impacts of both staying and going will mean to the industry. We hope to give everyone we'll get some biased views, but also an impartial view, so that people can actually understand what it means to them individually.
I think the problem with Brexit, or the European decision, is that people just don't realise how it's going to affect them. There's been so much negative publicity about Europe over the last decades that as soon as people get offered the chance to vote, I think their default answer is let's get out.
Yeah.
But the people, the staying campaign really needs to up its game, because if you look at what Mike Halls, the SMMT chief exec, has written in for us in this month's magazine, he's got a very strong argument for the automotive industry, which obviously we're very interested in, for staying in. It makes people's lives, it makes businesses' lives a lot easier staying in Europe. But people just see it as it's turned into a migrant conversation, which is wrong. It should be about how is this going to affect our lives. I don't think people realise prices are going to go up. You will leave Europe, car prices are going to go up. When you start having that conversation with people, they start thinking slightly differently about it.
It's definitely the personal impact versus the business impact. On a personal level, a lot of people are saying, well, it's good for me because we will get our jobs back. And whether this is true or not is beside the point. But that's what people are feeling. But as you said, if you put it on a business level, well, the business I'm working with, it might not be very well, I think I'm better off in my personal life, but actually the business I work for, that may impact me. And, we've already seen BMW come out and say, hey, if you leave, there could be a real impact on roles here.
Do you think that was the right move from them, though? Because it just seems to have got them a lot of negative press.
I think it was a terrible move. I don't think businesses like that should
shouldn't be telling people how to vote, basically.
Yeah, I think it's a terrible move. I think they're probably ruining doing that now. And actually, I think it's probably backfired quite badly on them, not just externally, but also with their staff.
The thing is with Europe, for years, the Leave campaign has had the run. Everybody's always blamed Europe for everything. Oh, you can't climb up that ladder, Europe. You can't do that for that reason because of Europe. And that's the problem. People just instantly think Europe is a bad thing, whereas people actually need to grab onto the reasons that it's a good thing and actually weigh those up very carefully before making this decision. Because it's a serious one.
What do you think those are, though? Because the feeling I'm getting when you read the in-out arguments is that the people saying in are saying we need to stay in because we don't know what's going to happen if we leave, and that seems to be what I'm getting, is we just don't know what's beyond. So is that really a strong enough argument?
Well, you look at the economy at the moment. The economy is fragile. The budget yesterday was very benign, but there was some words of caution in there. So why rock the boat? If we start messing about with how we're trading with Europe, there's a huge amount of trade comes in and out of Europe. It makes a massive difference to our economy. If we start rocking the boat now, we know how painful a recession is. We don't want to be heading back there.
There are some interesting figures about exports as well. And
yeah, I mean, I'm not entirely sure on this, but I think it's about 80% of cars sold here are, imported from across the EU. I mean, and that's a massive figure when you think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, then again, there are some, manufacturers that are still very keen to stay here. I mean, Honda, for example, have invested £2 million into Swindon. They're going to build the new Civic there, and they're going to import it for the first time over to the US from the UK. So that shows how much
and
faith
that's
they
the
have.
US, and that's not in Europe. And I don't think it'll impact the people who are currently producing here. What it might impact in the long term is whether people choose to invest and put a new factory here, or do they put it in Germany or France. I think that's more likely the risk. But again, we don't know. And as you said, I think the in campaign has not got itself into gear just yet. I think that's the problem.
And I mean, I was extremely undecided. I mean, until I had a meeting with SMMT last month. You can read about that in this month's magazine too. And they've got a very convincing campaign to stay in, and my business is automotive. We specialise in cars, and the last thing I want is for that boat to be rocked. So they were pretty convincing when it came to that argument about why I should personally be voting in. But that's the first person I've spoken to, and the first time I've actually thought about it in any great detail.
But do you not think that the people who are in business and trade with other nations will understand this? And these aren't the people you've probably got to educate. It's the people who perhaps aren't trading, who only see as, how does it impact me in my personal life? It's X, and don't appreciate that actually down the road there is a bigger impact. And I think those are the people that haven't been touched at the moment.
It'll be interesting to see what happens. I think we're just going to cut to a break now. We'll be back in around 3 minutes.
At this year's CDX 16, car dealers can expect an action-packed day. We've managed to line up some fantastic keynote speakers. People like Facebook and Twitter are going to be there to explain to dealers how to use social media to the best possible way when it comes to selling cars. We've got Google, who are going to explain how the search engine can work best for dealers. We're also delighted to say that we've got Jim Holder. He's the editorial director from Haymarket, behind brands like What Car, Autocar and Piston Heads, and he's going to be giving some fantastic insight into what car buyers want these days.
Some of the key workshops of CDX 16 will be covering topics such as personnel, training and development, how to find the right talent, how to retain that talent, and how to look at things like your website, marketing, and of course the all-important how to increase sales.
Suppliers really need to be at CDX. It has rapidly become the event for the motor trade. Last year we had 1,500 dealers turn up. This year we're aiming for 2,000.
All of our workshops are hosted by experts in their field. So you're going to come away and you're going to have learned something from those workshops that you can implement and put into place in your business the very next day.
This year for CDX 16 we're not resting on our laurels, we are making it bigger and better than ever before. And that's not only the expo is going to be larger, we've got an additional hall, but we're also going to be focusing more on the workshops. The workshops are where dealers can learn something new. We've got 12 fantastic topics. They range from recruitment to personnel to making the most out of online sales. And it's the place where dealers can really pick up some hints and tips to better their business and make that day out of the office really pay for itself. So if they haven't got a place at this year's CDX, they need to hurry up because places are selling out very, very quickly indeed. It's very easy to get more information about CDX 16. They can simply click on a link that's probably going to be playing underneath my face. They can call the office on 02392 522 434 or tweet us. I'm at Car Dealer Ed, the magazine's at Car Dealer Mag. We're out there, we're listening to what you've got to say, and if you need any help in booking a place or booking a ticket, then get in touch with myself or any one of the team here.
Hi, welcome back to Trade Plates Live. I'm joined today by Andy Entwistle, Sophie Williamson-Stothart, the longest name in the world, and James Baggett.
Another great introduction.
We've just been talking about Brexit, but actually what I'm going to move on to now is something featured in the magazine which I found really interesting this month about Dieselgate and how that's affected the price of Volkswagens. Now, I'm not going to reveal all of the facts, but I just want to see what you guys think about when a Volkswagen actually going to see a return, because we've also had the good news this week that SEAT have posted a growth in profits for the first time since 2008. So despite all the problems, they seem to be doing well, but Volkswagen not so much.
I think the SEAT thing is a long time coming. That brand has needed a lot of help with establishing its product lineup, and it's got some interesting stuff coming. So I think SEAT is a slightly weird one in the Volkswagen Group portfolio for me. I mean, I don't really know who a SEAT buyer is, and I don't really know if I'd ever recommend a SEAT over another Volkswagen Group product. And I think that's probably half their problem. Not that I won't recommend them, but I think that in general that people don't recommend them above a Golf or an Audi.
They do quite well in mainland Europe, don't they?
Yeah.
You see a lot of them in France and obviously homeland Spain.
I think it's, but I mean, you're talking about the Volkswagen situation. I mean, the prices have obviously going to take a tumble. You know, it was a massive scandal, and the research that we've done, I know we're not going to go into too much details about the figures, but they do show that used prices have fallen, and that's totally understandable. Whether they're ever going to come back, I don't know. I think they need to fix the problems. I mean, we still don't know what the recall and how far that extent that recall goes.
We covered this on the live show last week,
Yeah.
and I think the view was they're still a good product, but it's all about trust, and they've lost the trust. But I also think, let's be honest, canny buyers have used this to their advantage. They go in, they think, I'm going to get a deal on a Volkswagen because no one wants them right now. So, you know, let's be honest, if you're a canny buyer, you go in, you say, well, you know, I like the Golf, it's a great car, I don't really care, I know it will be okay. I'm going to have to give you 1,000 less on it because I don't know what I'm buying and the risks and when is it going to go in. So I think what's probably happened is people have been haggling a little more and have been chancing their arm and using this to knock the price down. Because
they're no less reliable. No. They're still a very, very good car. It just means you can get them for a slightly better price. Because I mean, at the end of the day, does the consumer know the difference between the CO2 that's coming out of the exhaust pipe? They don't, do they? And they probably don't really care. It's just the fact that the company lied. You know, that's the thing. That's the biggest problem, is that Volkswagen covered it up and hid this huge scandal. And I think that's what people are annoyed about more than anything else.
It's not. I don't think it's going to be a Lancia all over. You know, back in the day when Lancias all of a sudden they were rusting and they never ever got back from the position they were in prior to that. Well, eventually left the UK. But equally, if you look at Toyota. And Toyota, you know, a number of recalls, and they put their hands up. When they got a problem, they put their hands up, we've got a problem, and they get a little bit of lambasting in the press to begin with, but it goes away. And they've not suffered. Their stock is high, they've got great reliability, and I think it's because they're honest, and it comes back to your point.
And I wrote about this when the scandal first broke. You know, I spoke to the PR director at Toyota and said, you know, what would you have done? I mean, he was very coy about speaking about the Volkswagen thing, but he just said, look, speaking from when we had the huge recalls, it was about information. You know, he was on the radio, he was on the breakfast TV sofas, he was constantly out there giving the most up-to-date information he possibly had. Volkswagen just went German. You know, they just shut up and they didn't say anything, and that was the biggest problem. It's everybody just the press machine just started up, and it was just they wrote what they wanted to, rather than. Sorry.
The problem that they're having at the moment is, you see, they've got a £26 million lawsuit. I think it's 26 million, and it's sort of died down a little bit. And now all of a sudden, their investors have come along and said, "You weren't quick enough to respond. You lied," and just sort of pointed it all out, thrown it all out there again. And I
don't think they knew what to do. When it first happened, I think it completely caught them off guard, and they didn't know how to respond. They didn't have the time to come up with a proper PR plan, and they panicked and they fell down. No disaster planning in there at all. No. You know, their PR people need to look at themselves very closely, because I think that they caused this, whereas the likes of Toyota, when they've had a similar, nowhere near as bad as a similar issue, they're on it, they've dealt with it, they've managed it very well. There's
certainly going to be some interesting books written about this scandal in the years to come, because, you know, when it finally comes out about exactly what happened and, you know, the extent of what happened inside the manufacturer, I mean, I'll be very interested to hear.
I'm surprised that it's nothing else has come out about anybody else.
Yeah, me too.
When it happened, I thought this is the first of many, and we're going to discover that X, Y, and Z have also been in this. And in fact, the whole field's been playing it. I expected that to be the case. The fact that we're now nearly a year on, or a good 6-7 months on, and no one else has been implicated.
Well, there was Renault, but that seemed to blow over really quickly. They were raided by the police and everything.
Yeah, but I don't think that they were actually found guilty.
It wasn't quite the same. And the thing is with it, all manufacturers swap these cars. You know, as soon as a new car comes out, they swap it with all the other manufacturers. It's because it's got a reciprocal thing, so they can just all see what the competition's up to. So I can just see these engineers in a rival manufacturer taking apart these Volkswagen, going, "How on earth have they done this? You know, how on earth have they done this?" And then it's obviously hidden away so deep in the software that they're probably just left scratching their heads.
And the engineers that knew about it, they were obviously being paid very well, because you'd have thought that they'd have taken that somewhere else. So the fact that it took so long to come out was a surprise, but I just can't believe that everyone else is, well, at this point in time, remained clean. So that's probably what's hurt them more than anything.
And I don't think it's over yet. I mean, it's a long running thing that's going to go on for years, I think.
Yeah, well, there were still jokes, weren't there, at Geneva, which you two were both there. I know you didn't make it to the Volkswagen show, but how was the rest of it?
As you would expect, really. All the motor shows are always really exciting, and everyone's buzzing to find out what all the manufacturers have got on their stands, you know, all the latest concept cars, new tech and all that sort of thing. I mean, obviously, going back to Honda, you know, the NSX pricing was announced at £130,000, which, when you look back to the original of the 80s, you know, it was, you know, almost half of that. You know, it was £50,000 to £60,000. I don't know if that's really good value for money from that perspective. I mean, you're putting it up against really like a Ferrari 488 GTB, so which is 180 grand, but it's £25,000 more than a BMW i8. So there's quite a lot of talk about the value of what a new supercar with a hybrid powertrain's got. But,
did I hear that it's sold out? The NSX is sold out.
Well, this is what I was going to say was interesting, because if you're one of those people that put down a deposit and then found out that it's that much money. I don't know, it's a struggle. I mean, the NSX is that iconic car, and then you've got Ayrton Senna labelled to that as well, but it's interesting to just see how, you know, what people, especially with the BMW being 25 grand less, you're thinking, where's the value for money? And when it comes to a Ferrari or a Honda, are you going to go Ferrari?
It's in a very difficult price bracket there, isn't it? Because I mean, that's directly up against an R8. It's some very, you know, the high-end 911s. Yeah. I mean, 911 R8 or Honda. I mean, that's kind of, I know which way I'm going. I don't think I don't really like the design of the NSX.
Do you not?
No,
I think it's a very pretty car.
I think it's a little bit over the top in my mind, a little bit like this Type
It's right
R.
for its market, though, I think.
Yeah, but how many are they bringing to the UK? Do we know?
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's not a limited run, is it? And they're building by order, so they're going to be building it to order. So it's going to be one of those bespoke cars that you can obviously build to the spec you want.
Specialists and collectors, and they'll buy it as an investment. The majority, and this is the problem with these cars now. When you get up to that level, the majority of these cars are bought by collectors. You know, they're the people that can afford them, and it also means that the everyman just doesn't get a look in.
I enjoyed the Geneva show a lot. It's my favourite, not least because we get to do some skiing around it. But it's got a great feel to it. It's not a ridiculous size. You can get around it quite easily, and the manufacturers take it really serious when it comes to launching new products. So there was some really cool stuff there this year. The Aston Martin DB11. Not sure about the back end of it, but I think the front end of it looks really, really nice. I mean, obviously the Bugatti that everybody talks about, but I mean that looks absolutely amazing. The Renault Scenic really is one of my stars. I think the fact that they've changed that, they've pumped it up a little bit, they've made it look extremely different. I mean, it's on the cover here. I think it looks great. I mean, they had a few of them on the stand. It looked really, really good.
Talking of Aston Martin, you've heard the news today. Obviously, the tie-up between them and Red Bull.
Exciting.
I can't believe it, just a week after Geneva, that they couldn't get that sorted out a week before at Geneva.
They've been talking about that for some time though, haven't they? I think
there
was I mean, I'm pretty sure I read a story a little while ago on one, I think it might be an Autocar broke that story, that was happening, and that was around 6-7 months ago, so they all denied it then, but so it's interesting to see it finally come out. I think a nice tie-up. I mean, they obviously needed a car partner. They'd lost Infinity, and they'd all been rolling around in Infinities. I've seen a picture of Daniel Ricciardo on Twitter already with a Rapide, so he's obviously very, very happy now.
Yeah. So is that your standout then? The Renault Scenic would be.
I think so. I mean, the Volvo V90,
yeah.
V90, S90, the Volvo.
Yeah.
I can't remember which one it was. But this one in the corner was really pretty. I love what Volvo are doing at the moment. I think the the XC90 is just a fantastic car.
Yeah.
They are really on a roll at the moment. So it was nice to see that. But yeah, I mean, I think real world, I like what Renault are doing at the moment. Kajar's great. The scene, it looks brilliant. I think they seem to have that momentum back in.
Yeah.
I mean, I've kicked them in the past, for some of the things they've done. They took some really serious decisions a little while back when they fired a load of dealers. A few days before Christmas, it was a very awkward thing. But to see they had a 5-year plan then, and they came and explained it to me, and it's actually nice to see that plan being put in place. So, I'm quite impressed with what Renault are doing at the moment.
What about you, Sophie?
I think Ford was another brand that did really well at Geneva. I mean, performance Fords are something that everyone goes crazy for. And, on the back of the RS coming out, which has been, a massive success, they've launched the ST200, which is now like nearly 200 brake horsepower, isn't it? Which I think is going to be another,
it's like the everyman's RS almost.
Well, the Fiesta ST.
I was so disappointed with that, I must say. It's because the ST is a great car, but I wanted to see, I wanted an RS. Just make the RS, just get on with it and make a Fiesta RS. I look back at the Fiesta RS Turbo. My mate sent me a picture of one he saw one on the road. It was absolutely immaculate the other day, and I think, look, that is a brand that you've got. Use it. Everybody wants a Fiesta RS. I'm hoping this is kind of the precursor to it.
Do you want to look into the camera and ask Ford?
I don't know which camera to look into, but yeah, please, Ford, please.
Do you think they are just building to it?
That's what I was going to say.
I hope they are.
But they've been talking about it for years with the old ST as well, and they've always been great little chassis, and they've just never quite gone that far.
I heard that it would be too good, and it start kind of cannibalising the sales of the Focus, which is especially Focus ST, which is so. I hope that's not the case. I hope they just go out and make it. I mean, I want one that looks like the Ken Block one.
I was going to say, ask Ken if you can borrow his.
Yeah, I'd buy that. There's a confirmed order there if Ford make it.
Make that too.
Yeah.
What did you think about Ken's activities last week?
In
Top Gear wise.
I think they were very, very silly, weren't they? I mean,
You'd never do anything like that.
No, I'd never do anything like that. No. It's I think it's typical of the press blowing these things up a little bit, and the fact that Top Gear still obviously sells papers, but because if you look at how far away they were from the statue, they were a little bit further away than they should have been. But to be honest with you, they shouldn't really have been doing donuts in Westminster, should they?
But then saying that this is Top Gear being Top Gear, they're not stupid. They know how much press it's got them. It means they've retained their edge. Because that's what everyone thought. Now that the originals have gone, they've lost their edge, and it's maybe I'm being cynical here. It's them saying, let's just retain a bit of edge here, and maybe they've actually helped fluff the story up a little bit for that reason.
I'm looking forward to seeing what it's going to be like, because I've got my reservations about it, but I really like Chris Evans.
Oh, I don't.
Yeah, I know you don't like it, but I quite like Chris Evans. You can't deny he's been a very, very successful broadcaster. What he's done with Tier 5 Friday was great. The fact he could bring that back and revive it and be just as good.
A complete car nut as well.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I don't really agree with his lineup in some respects, but I'll just be interested to see how it gels together.
Well, Sabine Schmitz is awesome though, isn't she?
Yeah.
Everyone loves Sabine.
Good to have a woman on the line.
Yeah, true.
Good presence.
And it's nice to see, Rory Reid. He's a guy that I've been on launches with in the past. He's a really nice guy. He knows what he's talking about, and it's nice to see that they've invested in someone like that alongside the attention-grabbing people like Matt LeBlanc. Because as much as I like him, I don't know whether he's the right person for Top Gear.
So bring it back to car dealers a bit less Top Gear.
Yeah.
On the forum, people have been talking about their sales in March and how they've been a little bit disappointed. And one of the things they put it down to is that PCP is stealing away cars from the independents, which I don't think any of us can deny, but I just want to know your thoughts.
No, I think it absolutely is. I mean, I was talking to Kia this week. They've just, they're about to, I think at the end of this quarter will be their best quarter ever. And they do fantastic PCP deals. All the manufacturers are pushing into it. Cars are sold now on a monthly payment. You can buy some cars at the same price as some people pay for a mobile phone. So why wouldn't you buy new? That's the thing. Why wouldn't you buy new?
It's something we mentioned last weekend, didn't we? And actually, as a result of the conversation, this very conversation about beginning of the year has been very dodgy for the used side. I've had a number of emails from dealers saying, yeah, absolutely, we had a great January, then a bad February, or a good February and a bad January. No one's had a consistent start to the year, and they are all putting it down to this reason that the PCP, particularly at the lower end of the market, are stealing the small car sales.
Yeah. I mean, it must be tough to be a used car dealer at the moment. I mean, I can see the if you're in that territory where your cars are priced at roughly the same as you would be paying for a PCP. You know, you're buying a used car on HP, or you're buying a brand new car on PCP. Which one are you going to go for? I mean, it's the one with the warranty and the backup of a manufacturer. So it's obviously going to be tough, and used car dealers maybe have to rethink a little bit the way they market these cars.
Look at the Americans, because the American market's been like this for a long time. You need to look at what they're doing there. And actually, we have back to CDX, one of our workshops is going to be looking at how the American market is working at the moment, and maybe we can get some ideas.
How have they, and I don't want you to give away too much, but how have they reacted to?
Well, it's been like that for an awful long time, so they've not had to react. But in America, for a number of years now, you buy the car on the PCP. And if you spend any time in the States, you'll see two types of car. You've either got the brand new stuff that they go in, they pay it monthly, they hand it back, they get another one. And it's always my $400 a month, and I get my new car every X time. Or you've got the other end, which are worth absolutely nothing at all. And what it does do, and I think we haven't seen this yet, is because there's less requirement for cars at 3 to 4, 5 years old, it's dropping the values of them down.
Well, I think it's an absolutely seismic shift in the way that we buy cars in the UK, because for years everybody wants to own something. You know, I mean, the UK, unlike Europe, always wants to buy their own house rather than rent. You know, and in mainland Europe, most people rent their properties because they just see it as a monthly expense. And it's been the same with cars. People want to own that product, which is why HP or a bank loan was popular. Whereas now people are just seeing it as you might as well lease these things, because then you can have a new one again in 3 years' time. It's just a case of everybody wants to have brand new all the time, and people are seeing the difference and seeing the benefits of PCP.
I've just come back from, I spent the weekend in rural France, and I was there with a couple of friends, and the one thing we noticed is the amount of old cars out there.
Yeah.
You know, particularly when you get into the countryside, Renault 11s, Renault 9s, all this stuff still on the road, still hammering away. And the Europeans they buy their cars and they just keep them till literally the chickens can get out the back window.
Yeah.
You know, and then they'll get a new car. Whereas it's all about, we've got to have a new car every 3 years.
Yeah.
You know, very different.
What do you think that is about us? Why do we?
Maybe we're just really greedy.
Yeah, maybe.
I think it is unfortunately something about the Brits, isn't it? It's always it's an image thing, trying to keep up with the Joneses, and also we are very susceptible to marketing. You know, BMW. 15 years ago, Ford and Vauxhall made some fantastic large saloons. And you know, I'll go back maybe a little bit longer than that, but the Amiga and the Granadas, God, that's how old I am. But they were good cars. But what killed them off is the fact that BMW said, "Oh no, you've got to have a BMW if you're an exec." And the execs now, it's got to be a 5 Series, or it's got to be a Mercury, it's got to be an Audi. It wouldn't be seen dead in a Ford. And actually, Ford make very, very good cars. And it is its image. It's all about image.
With technology as well, isn't it? I mean, if you want to be with the whole development of electric and hybrid vehicles, if you know that manufacturers are constantly building on that and you want to be the first one to test it out, you're going to constantly be wanting new cars.
I was exactly like that with new phones. I always wanted to know that I was getting the best. But I also think part of it is the easiness of it, because I just bought a new old car, but I almost was tempted to buy a Peugeot 208 just to add fuel, because it's just so easy and I knew exactly how much it was going to be. It's cheap, easy, and I quite like them, but it's not really what I go for.
I guess you can't really blame people, can you, for wanting that easy route, especially when everything else is so complicated, like, you know, buying houses and all that sort of thing.
And it's when it's so affordable, you can see why people do it.
But what do dealers need to do? What do you think would bring people back?
Well, I mean, used car dealers the PCP products are extending into used cars. They have been for a number of years, but now the finance companies are being a little bit more lenient with how old those products, those cars can be to be on a PCP, because residual values can be set a little bit easier now. There's a lot more knowledge in the market. So I think they need to just fight fire with fire and push PCPs themselves more.
I think the finance companies have got a part to play, and they've got to stand up and help here, which is if you want a PCP on a 3-year-old Fiesta or a 4-year-old Fiesta, we'll do it for 5 or 6 years. It'll bring that payment down and it can compete with a brand new Smart 4.2 or something. So I think the finance companies have got to help the dealers here, because otherwise you're going to go and buy £99 a month, you're going to buy a new car, as opposed to £250 for a 3-year-old Fiesta. You know?
Do you think part of it is the worry with things going wrong as well?
I think a lot of it is.
Warranties eradicating that, or because car dealers offer them with warranties, don't they?
They do, but they're not going to be as long as a 3-year, 5-year, 7-year Kia manufacturer warranty, which is a very, very good purchase decision, it really does help with when you're choosing a car. If you go for a Kia, you know that it's going to be fixed for 7 years. I mean, that's a massive thing. But the ironic thing is, people do a 3-year PCP, so a 7-year warranty makes no sense whatsoever. But still,
Yeah,
you can see why people do it. I think the 7-year warranty just shows that Kia have got so much confidence in their product. And if you've got confidence in your product, you're much more likely to buy it because it's going to be reliable.
Yeah.
So we've had the question: do you think the PCP bubble will ever burst? Honestly,
I think it's if it did ever burst, it would be rapidly replaced with something else. And they're constantly refining the product. It's a great way to buy cars. Manufacturers are desperately pushing it, and I think it's probably just going to increase. If anything, I think other forms of finance will dwindle away.
I think the one issue that we haven't seen yet, it comes back down to valuations. If there's less requirement of 3 to 4 year old vehicles, the value, the residuals of those vehicles will drop. And what that will mean is ultimately the cost of PCPs will go up because they're based on the residual value. So actually we're in this cycle, we haven't seen it yet, and what will happen is the values will go down. So when you want to get your PCP, it'll go up. So at some point it'll either balance itself out, or else it will start to push people back into used cars who can't afford that PCP. But I think we're a couple of years away from that.
One of the problems I've been hearing from the dealers is they're trying to sell them cheaper, but the costs at the auctions are going up, which I know was something we covered in the magazine, so they're now struggling to buy them. Is that going to turn around as well, do you think?
It's market demand, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's got to at some point, but it's going to be down to the dealers. Once you've got someone who's prepared to pay 50 quid more than the next guy, it's going to keep happening. And what you're finding is that the larger franchise guys can afford to pay a bit more because they're taking the money from the new car sales, and therefore they can afford to rely on that a little bit more. So they'll pay a bit more for their stock and they'll price it a bit higher. And it is hurting the independents. And I think it's the independents that are feeling it the most at the moment.
Yeah, that's the feeling I've been hearing. I don't know if you guys have heard anything else.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been talking to a lot of manufacturers lately, and they're having a good time. They are. Yeah. They're. You obviously spoke to a lot of them in Geneva, and they're incredibly positive. Mitsubishi, especially. They've had an absolute fantastic 3 years. They were up 40% last year. Year before that, up 75%. These are kind of. And I think the interesting thing is for me at the moment is you look at the sales figures for the start of this year. New cars are still rising. This is on the back of the best year for over a decade, and it's up again. How long is this going to continue for?
I find them too good to be true. They must be, but I can't believe they're going up that much, that people need that many new cars.
But then I think it goes back to the PCP thing. Cars are very affordable. There's some fantastic products out there. People are in that cycle now of knowing that they can get a new car in 3 years' time. It just keeps on. It's self-fulfilling. People keep buying those cars, getting a new one. They're going to tell all their friends, "Oh, I keep getting a new car every 3 years. It's brilliant. It costs me the same amount of money."
Interest rates are low. So, do it while the interest rates are low. The money sitting in the bank isn't really helping. So if you've got to put a £5,000 deposit down, well, let's put it into the car.
Yeah.
Fuel prices are low.
Yeah.
And I've noticed, I don't know about you guys, but I've noticed that my journey to work in the last 6 months has got far, far worse because there's just more on the road. And as much none of us want the fuel prices to go up or interest rates to go up if you've got a mortgage, equally, it needs something like that, I think, to temper this.
It's funny you say that because I have noticed more people on the road and I couldn't work out why.
Well, car sales have been going up for the last year.
And
that's a huge amount more cars than
£1 a litre, just over £1, £1.2 from nearly £1.30. So
people are just driving around in circles because they can.
Because they can.
Absolutely, yeah. Everyone goes over in second gear.
I know I do.
Yeah.
So we've got just over a minute left. What is your favourite feature from this month, quickly? Start with Sophie because you wrote most of it.
Everything I wrote. I was actually one of my favourite features, I have to say. Obviously the Geneva is a big feature for us this month, and there's lots of really great content in there. We spoke with most of the MDs, with all the leading car manufacturers in Geneva, so there's lots going on in there. I'm actually really pleased with my Rybrook feature I wrote. I spoke with Henry Whale, the MD. And he had so much to tell me about how it's been a family business since I think it was 1937. It's been in their family, and it's all going back to that connection of what makes a really good car dealer. And it's not just about giving them the best prices and all those marketing ways of getting people in. It's a good old-fashioned ways of building relationships and really getting to know customers and that trust and the history of how you've built a successful business. So there was lots of really good little nuggets that he slipped into the interview.
Because I think even despite all the price stuff, people do really like to go to a car dealer they can trust and they feel like they believe in.
Definitely.
What about you, James?
I think the piece that Mike Hawes, the SMMT chief, wrote for us on Europe is fantastic. Not least because I've been giving the SMMT a kicking over the years. The last few months, I've been asked them about pre-registrations. I've given Mike some very tough questions in interviews. But they're a very grown-up organisation. We had a very grown-up chat, sat around the table and discussed our differences. And off the back of that, we offered them the opportunity to write exclusively for Car Dealer, and they took us up on it. So not only is it nice to see an organisation, unlike some other ones that we deal with, taking a grown-up stance on a difference in opinion. It's also nice to have someone like Mike Hawes writing for the magazine and giving the information about Europe that a lot of us want.
Anything to add, Andy?
Big Mike.
Obviously,
always a favourite.
yeah.
Always a
Big
favourite.
Mike. And I know a lot of people go straight there, first of all.
Yeah.
Apart from obviously your column.
Obviously,
yeah.
only because
which is an absolute must read.
Thank you, Andy. That's very kind of you to say. There is a panda, yeah. I forced them to use that as a picture.
I haven't read it yet, but
Well,
I'm
that's
curious why there's a
shocking.
panda in there.
Look out for the panda, basically.
Okay, thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you to my lovely guests who are going to go back to working hard on CDX and Car Dealer and Workshop magazine. Thank you for tuning in and all your lovely comments. We're going to try and get back to you now, and this is going to be, if you've missed anything, it's going to be uploaded to YouTube and on our website later, so keep checking back, and I'll be posting on Twitter and Facebook about it if not. Thank you and goodbye.
At this year's CDX 16, car dealers can expect an action-packed day. We've managed to line up some fantastic keynote speakers. People like Facebook and Twitter are going to be there to explain to dealers how to use social media to the best possible way when it comes to selling cars. We've got Google, who are going to explain how the search engine can work best for dealers. We're also delighted to say that we've got Jim Holder. He's the editorial director from Haymarket, behind brands like What Car, Autocar and Piston Heads, and he's going to be giving some fantastic insight into what car buyers want these days.
Some of the key workshops of CDX 16 will be covering topics such as personnel, training and development, how to find the right talent, how to retain that talent, and how to look at things like your website, marketing, and of course the all-important how to increase sales.
Suppliers really need to be at CDX. It has rapidly become the event for the motor trade. Last year we had 1,500 dealers turn up. This year we're aiming for 2,000.
All of our workshops are hosted by experts in their field. So you're going to come away and you're going to have learned something from those workshops that you can implement and put into place in your business the very next day.
This year for CDX 16 we're not resting on our laurels, we are making it bigger and better than ever before. And that's not only the expo is going to be larger, we've got an additional hall, but we're also going to be focusing more on the workshops. The workshops are where dealers can learn something new. We've got 12 fantastic topics. They range from recruitment to personnel to making the most out of online sales. And it's the place where dealers can really pick up some hints and tips to better their business and make that day out of the office really pay for itself. So if they haven't got a place at this year's CDX, they need to hurry up because places are selling out very, very quickly indeed. It's very easy to get more information about CDX 16. They can simply click on a link that's probably going to be playing underneath my face. They can call the office on 02392 522 434 or tweet us. I'm at Car Dealer Ed, the magazine's at Car Dealer Mag. We're out there, we're listening to what you've got to say, and if you need any help in booking a place or booking a ticket, then get in touch with myself or any one of the team here.